Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Shank 2. Let's hop into campaign mode so we can kind of get out of the noise. Like, inherently I imagine you're always going to use the chainsaw as your heavy weapon because it does the most amount of damage. And let's see. I feel like mines might be the thing that you would want to kind of play around with. See, it says completing game tasks to unlock more skins for all of these skins, which kind of feels like unless I also complete all of the achievements, I may not get all the skins in the game. One of the things I went and checked is just like, when did Shank 1 come out? And it came out in 2010.
We got worried when you just disappeared.
So here's the new character.
Shank, we need your help. Join the resistance.
You're in the resistance?
At least I'm doing something.
I feel like there probably was some color coding in the first game where he was.
Since when did you care?
Since now.
Since he was all in red, and I think the other bad guys may have been in black or red in the first game. Now it seems like the rebels are always in yellow.
Okay then, I'll just return the favor.
So we have a new couple getting burnt and a new bad guy. Interestingly though, that was like a red-headed couple, so in the middle of Central America, a red-headed couple seems a little weird. One of the attacks, certainly from all of this, is an attack that would be to grab and attack and do multiple stabbings and shankings at the same time. But yeah, it doesn't seem like you're gonna do too much of that. Let's see.
You may need this.
So now we have a high-speed ranged weapon in guns, which is probably cooler than throwing knives. Let's see. And so we can get a whole loop going here where you can potentially hit a lot of people without taking any damage yourself. But doesn't inherently mean that that's the best move. Just throwing the box seemed to not do anything, actually. But yeah, because this game came out really only 2 years after the first game, it kind of feels like it should have been DLC. More than a totally new game. Like that kind of would make more sense. The first game is actually fairly short too, it seems, so it definitely feels like there could have been a bigger, longer break between the two releases. If this had come out 5 years to 10 years after the first game, that would have made some more sense. Particularly if it was a longer experience in general. Yeah. It's been basically a year, a decade, not a year. That big difference there, since the since the second game has come out. So you are, I think, better situated.
All they have is pocket change.
This whole thing feels a lot more like you're rescuing Japanese civilians in a Japanese feudal era experience more than a Central American country, which is where I assume this is set. I assume it's more just set in the exact same place as the first game. Arguably, this isn't quite the same experience that you would expect from a lot of these kinds of games. Also, the buttons are a little bit different, and the combos are a little bit different. I've always had an ambition, certainly, to play like a fighting game, and that definitely would be a concern in any fighting game, is that the combos in the fighting game would be so incredibly different and hard to get used to. Try that again. Noticeably, I have not succeeded in any way as far as using the mines. You're getting a lot of currency for what doesn't seem like really great reasons. Also, kind of poor programming. They have something disappear as you're getting closer to it. There's a little tweak there to just give it a little bit longer time before it disappears.
You have it in you to be a leader, but remember, I won't always be there to help you.
Elena.
While you were getting drunk, Magnus's thugs took her away. You can catch the 10 o'clock bus out of town.
Not this time. I'll find her.
I guess in a funny way, Shank always did kind of come off as maybe too much of a white guy for his skin tone. And that probably could be a bit of a problem too. Like, I guess you potentially consider that this might be a world where multi-cultures and races all came together in a Central American type country, or Central American cultural country. I am running into trouble because I really can't tell the difference between one guy and the other in the flames. And apparently at some point I spent all of my mines. So I'm going to try and stick with mines throughout this, but you can definitely tell that it's not very useful. But yeah, it has been 10 years since this game came out, so it does feel like this would be the time to potentially introduce a new Shank, a remake of Shank. There may not really be a lot of difference as far as what the actual experience would be if you were to make a new Shank. Your hope would be that Clay Interactive would just have more budget, more publishing or funding to try and go further in that direction and make more of a real experience or a longer game. Probably not focus on multiplayer, because the gimmicks of multiplayer now are pretty obvious that they don't work for mid-tier and low-tier games, and this really would be more of a low-tier, mid-tier game. Noticing that the guns not really working well at all. A lot of fire in this level, which makes me suspect we probably won't see much fire at all in future levels. Because this is too much of a gimmick. I don't know if I'm actively having to avoid getting blown up or not.
Helena!
Shank.
In a lot of examples, though, I feel like when you see these high levels of animation and you don't have enough of a game to really justify these cutscenes, it does become more of a question of whether or not interesting. He does float in the air when he shoots his gun. Alright. Kind of feels like there should be pretty much an achievement for every time you get one of these grab attacks. Just like not really a lot you can do. So once again we have a boss at the end here that's just a little too difficult. And I feel like there's definitely that's something that should be improved upon if you were going to make a new sequel or a remake or reboot. Like it really doesn't need to be a remake so much as a continuation, but 10 years later it would make a lot of sense to just include the same levels. Just include the same levels of the first and second game. Even in this sequel, it probably would have been kinder to include the first game. Like that would, I think, have worked better, is if you had only been able to get Shank as a bundle with the second game. I almost won there. But then that wouldn't really be very loyal. That wouldn't reward loyal customers who had bought the first game. Certainly, if everybody, including people who had already bought the first game, was given another copy. But I think there's probably a way you could do that where you just say, Everybody who gets Shank 2 gets a free code for Shank 1. You can give it to a friend, particularly since there's a co-op aspect to this. The idea of a guest pass, which is not a concept that would have existed really on Steam in 2012, but does certainly exist in 2022. But yeah, the idea of potentially giving a free full version of the game, or just a guest pass to the multiplayer of the game. If I can win here, I'd be happy. Certainly. Chainsaw is still the right weapon here. Knives are better here. And I feel like grenades are probably better here. And starting with that, I don't think really changed anything because I still really only have one grenade. And it really does just seem like the trick is to try to avoid as much damage as possible first and foremost, and worry about other things later. One grenade and one slash really feels like that probably is something that you have to use at the last second. And I keep dying over and over again, so I'm basically getting no score on this at all. Yeah, it seems like you have to pretty much close the gap and either try and slash the guy a lot more, or try for your fast attack. Yeah, I'll try and get my health back. It doesn't really feel like the game is gonna take great pity on you as far as fights, and just let you win. Like, I am... Yeah, I'm about to lose again. My only hope is to just get a lucky shot there. Which, inherently, I think this is the problem that I kind of ran into in the first game, is that you get into these boss fights, and you may be at the last boss fight of the last level of the game, and just really struggle.
Hop in. I know where they're taking me.
This rebel guy does not... He looks a little too wimpy for the way everybody else is kind of depicted in the game. But yeah. It may be a good thing that this game really seems like it is only going to be 3 or 4 hours. I can't imagine wanting to play this a second time through at this rate, unless they just decide to unlock some new ability or skill. Inherently, a game this short is not going to even have you get through the first playthrough enough that you would actually be a better player by the time the next level happens. We also didn't unlock anything new as far as a heavy weapon. We did unlock the pistols, but I don't know if speed with the pistols really makes sense. It makes sense for smaller enemies, but it doesn't make sense for bosses, and since bosses are the big deal. And then yeah, because there's more splash damage around grenades, you would just want to use grenades more. In fact, the amount of tactics on grenades compared to Molotovs is pretty much the same also, so there's not a scenario where you'd ever really want to use Molotov cocktails. And we're not unlocking suits very fast either, which it would have felt like you would have done that. So yeah, this feels like this is going to be a short and not so sweet experience, as it is, with no subtitles, with the audio in the menu far too loud, but being kind of the right level of the audio I think that you would want in the actual game, because there's just no dialogue or other sound effects playing in the main game, and you would want it brutal and gory. Even the gore here, 2 levels in, is fairly repetitive and just redundant in a lot of ways. We're not seeing a lot of really cool action moves even defeating the bosses. We're getting animations showing the bosses being defeated, but they're not even particularly that gory. What you would have expected more of is, say, the Firefly character. I'm calling him Firefly because he had a flamethrower. You would think that you would take the flamethrower and like shove it down the throat of the guy and then start it and then watch his entire face melt off and just be the most extreme, the goriest you could possibly think of imagery, instead of just him being sliced up a little bit like so many previous characters. Yeah, undoubtedly this should have been a 5 to 10 hour game where you had more that you had to do, more missions that maybe were a little bit shorter or even simplistic, missions that really gave no challenge at all. That way you could just go through them and try to get your best score and grind up for gold. I'm not sure what the gold is even really worth, because it doesn't seem to play a role actually in the campaign mode. So I don't know why I'm picking it up other than for score. But yeah, had there been more of an experience in that way, kind of like the River City series, most notably, you would want to compare this to something like River City Girls, which River City Girls 1 and 2 are now out as of recording this. Just having more meat on the bone for a game like this would keep you playing all the way to the end, and by the time you're at the end in a 5 to 10 hour experience, you probably would be pretty good at smashing the buttons and doing the combos and tightly controlling where your character is, so whether he is within the range of taking damage or not, because a lot of this definitely is around just jumping out of the way and dodging attacks. But yeah, if you got through one playthrough and you were pretty good at it and you'd actually improved in your gameplay by the end, then you'd have a much better argument to tell the player to play a second time and do even better, or play on a higher difficulty. But this game has like maybe 4 more levels, and unless it just unlocks a ton more levels or gives you a really good reason to play as a different character or a different skin, I can't see a reason why you'd want to play a second time. But instead of speculating on it now, let's just end this recording, and then I can move on to recording the next one. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend to follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wish list. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.